Greetings, everyone. Welcome to LIfeTalk. Glad that you guys are here with us, whether you are watching this live right now or later on, or maybe it's evening time or daytime. It doesn't matter. We are just grateful that you are here with us. Again, this is LIfeTalk, where we encounter truth and discovering life. And we have been in a series now. This is our second week called The Me I Want to Be. Becoming God's best version of you. And tonight we're going to be talking about becoming who you are based out of Colossians chapter 3. And so we just want to go ahead and make sure that you get some time to get comfy wherever you're at, and maybe the study guide as well, which we'll be discussing here in just a second. But right now I want to go ahead and bring in our panel around the screen rather than just be me, because I know you guys. Anybody else? Hey!
Hello! How we doing?
We were doing great until Lisa took us all out and then put us back in.
And now for Hollywood Squares.
That's what I was going to say, like a magic trick. Disappear.
Yeah, sorry. I didn't mean to do that.
It's all good. It's all good. How's everybody doing tonight?
I'm doing well.
Good.
All righty. Well, I tell you what, let's get this party started here in just a bit. For those of you all who are watching with us, listening to us right now, man, just let us know that you're out there. That way that we're not just speaking to each other as much as I love Lisa, Kayla, and Joe. We want to know that somebody else is out there as well, too. We're not just speaking out in the air. Give us a, hey, what's going on? A heart, an emoji, something, man, right? Just to let us know that you are there. And you can also get this study guide, bada bing, bada boom. It is on our Facebook right now, church Facebook, and you just click on that link and it's this study guide. It basically pops up on Tuesdays and Wednesdays for sure, several hours beforehand, just to kind of give you a little bit of time to prep. So I am going to hand this off to
Kayla.
I'm trying to find the box, but okay, that didn't work. Go ahead, Kayla.
All right, well, I'm just going to start us off with our icebreaker question. So, what is one place or thing you would like to see before you die? I'm ready to hear y'all's answers. Let's get right into it.
I've got a couple. My wife's bucket list always included Hawaii. And so about 3 years ago, we made a trip to Hawaii, and it was amazing. We really, really enjoyed it. For my bucket list, the thing that's number one, the thing that I want to see before I die, I want to see the Alps. I love mountains. And I'd like to see the Swiss Alps. I'd like to go to Switzerland and stay in some tiny town that had an incredible view of the Alps and wake up on a snowy morning. And I don't think it could get much better than that. So that would be my number one.
I hear you, man.
Yeah. Well, then, Joe, you and I need to switch because I've been to Switzerland and it is beautiful. And okay. I love that. But on my bucket list, I guess it would be Hawaii and Ireland. So those are the two places that I want to go.
Oh, what? Why Ireland?
Yeah, I don't know. It's just here lately. I don't know. Maybe it's shows that I'm watching, but I'm just fascinated with old castles and just kind of like the history there and stuff. So, and I love the little accents. So
several years ago, when Tyler was 13, he had an opportunity to travel with a bunch of other children, and they spent a night in a castle. And, I think that would just be so cool to spend the night. To kind of camped out on the grounds, but inside the wall, I thought that would be amazing. So, that's cool. I like Ireland. What about you, Adam?
The one thing I want to see before I die.
Yep.
The Rockettes.
This is going to be profound.
The Rockettes?
No, I'm just playing. That's serious. No, honestly, that's serious. That's serious. That's actually one on her thing on her bucket list. But for me, I know a lot of people are probably tuning in, watching this, like, oh, he's a pastor, this is a church. No, in all honesty, way before even Sarah and I met, I just haven't had the chance. I want to do a holy tour. I want to go to the Holy Land. I want to go to Jerusalem. I want to do kind of a tour around Egypt. I kind of want to do a little bit of a tour around Greece and so forth. That might actually happen, Lord willing, here in the next couple of years. So, but it's just something I've been wanting to do for a very long time.
Excellent.
Cool. Yep.
What about you, Kayla?
I feel like you guys have such exciting ones. Mine was just my brothers just recently went on a trip to Colorado, and they posted all these amazing pictures. And a really good friend of mine had moved there, and so she was posting pictures. And I'm like, I want to experience that for myself. I want to go hiking there. It was just beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
There's been a lot of people that have been talking about Colorado. I mean, evidently there's something majestic in Colorado. I mean,
that's what I'm hearing, and I would like to experience it.
I FaceTime Zach, and Zach's like, "Hey, Dad, check this out in my bedroom. And it's just like all these mountains. I'm like, man, that's awesome.
Yes.
You know, West Virginia's got those hills too. I mean,
little different.
I mean, they're a little different, but you know.
Hills hill.
All right. Well, now I'm taking the torch and I'm passing it up. It's coming up, Lisa.
Okay. All righty. Well, like Adam said, we are on week 2 and we're doing Becoming Who You Are. And we are going to be reading out of Colossians 3, 1 through 10. Bear with me as I read it and put it up on the screen for you. And my dogs are barking. Just a second. They wanted to say hello. Sorry about that. All right. Colossians 3, 1 through 10. Since then, you have been raised with Christ. Set your hearts on things above, where Christ is seated at the right hand of God. Set your minds on things above, not on earthly things. For you died, and your life is now hidden with Christ in God. When Christ, who is your life, appears, then you will also appear with him in glory. Put to death, therefore, whatever belongs to your earthly nature: sexual immorality, impurity, lust, evil desires, and greed, which is idolatry. Because of these, the wrath of God is coming. You used to walk in these ways in the life you once lived, but now you must also rid yourselves of all such things as these: anger, rage, malice, slander, filthy language from your lips. And I got one more here. Let me pull this up. Do not lie to each other, since you have taken off your old self with its practices and have put on the new self, which is being renewed in knowledge in the image of its creator.
Thank you, Lisa. I appreciate that. All right, so let's get started. We've got some good study questions tonight, and I'm anxious to kind of get into our discussion. So again, keeping with that theme, becoming who you are, I kind of think of the opposite sometimes. I think there's certainly times when I act in a way that's not in keeping with who I think I am. So that's our first study question tonight. Why does a person often act in a way they did not intend to? Why does a person often act in a way they did not intend to? Kayla, can you get us kicked off here, please?
I will. Mine's kind of short, so I'll get us started. But for me, we often act without even thinking.
Mm.
That was what kind of instantly came to my mind, is why a person often acts in a way they didn't intend to. I mean, sometimes you just do it without even thinking about it. But I know that you guys have probably much more profound answers than that. So I'm excited to kind of hear what you guys, think about it.
I think it's a good answer, and I think that's a correct answer. I guess when I read this question, it kind of begged another question to me. And that is, how much have I really thought about who I am and who I want to be? I heard of a neat exercise, so I'm going to ask you to bear with me while I tell you a little story. And maybe it'll help us kind of get our thinking and our creative juices flowing. If I want to think about who I want to be, let me take you on this trip. We're going to a funeral this evening. We're all in a car. We're going to the funeral home. We arrive in the lot. We see cars of all kinds of people we know. So we're wondering, man, that's interesting that they're all here this evening. We walk in the funeral home, and just like you would expect, there's soft organ music in the background. A lot of people I know are there. And I was surprised because I didn't know that they were going to be there. I walk to the front of the room, and I walk to where the casket is, and I look down into the coffin, and I see myself. And I mean, I'm taken aback. So I'm kind of just, I need to catch my breath. So I sit down for a second, and I pick up the program. And so here's the program for the funeral of Joe Moore. And there's going to be 4 people giving eulogies this afternoon. The first one is a family member. I mean, I think it could be your wife, it could be your husband, it could be a child or brother, sister. It could be anyone that's a close family member, but someone that knows how you acted and interacted in your family. The second one is your friend, maybe the closest friend you have, the one that you shared everything with. They're going to be the second part of this service, and they're the ones that's going to be sharing things about you that maybe no one else knows. The third one is a coworker, someone that you work with day in and day out. They saw you under stress. They saw you under these environments that's kind of unique to the work environment, and they can speak to that. And the last one is someone from your church. It could be the pastor. It could be a spiritual brother or sister, but someone who knows where you're at spiritually and can speak to that. So here's the question. The date is 3 years from today. And what I want you to think about is how you would live for the next 3 years so that these people that are giving your eulogies, that they would honestly be able to tell others about you in a way that you would prefer, in a way that you would like. In other words, something that I could be proud of. You've got 3 years to do it. And I think for me, that kind of gives me a little bit of an idea. Okay, here are the things that are really important. Here's the things I thought were important, but maybe they're not as important as I thought they were initially. So how am I going to live in a way so that I'm acting in a belief system that is in keeping with what I want people to remember me for? So I think that for me, that was the question that kind of begged. I agree totally with Kayla. When I do something that's not in keeping with what I wanted to do, I think it's usually because I don't think before I speak. If it's a verbal thing, if it's a speaking thing, lots of times I just speak. I react rather than to respond. I heard a saying that I always liked about an admiral, and he had a wife whose mouth never rejected what her mind thought. No filter, none whatsoever. So anyway, sometimes I think that's exactly like Kayla was saying, we speak in haste, and maybe we just never really think about how we want to act in the first place. All right, that's me. Adam, what about you, buddy?
But the question is, why does a person often act in a way they do not intend to?
Yes.
I think it's kind of what you were going back to. I think a lot of times people just honestly don't take the time to think first. You just do. I had a conversation with an individual here recently, and it was going to possibly alter some future choices and outcome and so forth. And the individual was just like, I'm tired of thinking. I just want to do. And I think the culture that we live in a lot of times is kind of in that same mind frame. I don't think people intend to, but it's just more of like, I got to get to the next thing, whatever that next thing is. And so I don't, who's got time to slow down and think about this? Just do it. You know what I'm saying? Just do it. But for this, though, it means that one has to be intentional about something. Again, I don't think anybody wakes up one day and says, man, I can't wait to scream, at my kids or my coworker or my neighbor. I don't think anybody wakes up doing that. I don't think there was an intention of doing that. But with certain things that happen in life, we just are not intentional about time out and in the pause button. Let me think about how this is going to how this is going to be. What is the outcome if I say this, if I do this, if I go here, whatever else. We just honestly we don't think.
That's a great response. I think that that really kind of gets to the heart of the issue. Am I living intentionally? I think that's a really good question. All right.
Yes.
All right. See that Linda has joined us, Linda Harless. I appreciate that. She's joined us this evening, and that's great. Lisa, do you have any final thoughts in relation to that, as to the question why we don't act in the way that we intended to?
Yeah, mine takes a little different turn. One, and maybe you guys hit that. I'm sorry, I got a little distracted. I'm going to do a little disclaimer. Those of you who may be watching, I do see that some of you have said hi. Judy has said hi, and Patsy has said hello. We are actually broadcasting on Pastor Jesse's personal page, and I think we're going to try and share that. I think Kayla's working on that. But those of you who are friends with Pastor Jesse, if you just look over there, we're live there, and I can see your comments there. And the other one is probably on Living in the Word, is where we are. My bad. I don't know what I hit, but hey, it's all good. This is all technology. It's all good. This will be replayed, and we'll get it on the right spot. I just can't change anything right this second. Okay, but back to maybe why does a person often act in a way that they did not intend to? I think depending on what's happening in their life right at that moment, and if you guys hit that, just say, yeah, we hit it and move on. But all of our intentions may be good, but what if you're like hungry or angry that day, or something bad's happened to you that day? That's not normally how we would have acted. But if someone catches you at the wrong time, the way you act would be different than if it was a good day for you.
That's a good point. Very good point. All right, let's go down to question number 2. Do you think most people's spiritual belief and spiritual practices are in alignment? Okay, whether our spiritual belief and our spiritual practices are in alignment. Adam, what do you think, buddy?
No. And here's why. I think the average person, I could be completely wrong on this, folks. So please, we would love to hear from you if you can chime in on this. But I think, honestly, people compartmentalize their lives. Actually kind of rhymes. Hey, there you go. Compartmentalize your life. There you go. I do. I think people go about this. I think they say, okay, in this sphere is work, right? This is who I am. This is how I'm going to act. This is how I'm going to think. All right. Now this is my play life. I'm going to go out and golf or whatever else. I'm going to think, act, and play like this. Here's my faith component, right? You know what I'm saying? This is whatever day of the week this is. And then now over here, I got my family. So I think a lot of times when it comes to practice what you preach, so to speak, I do. It shouldn't be that way. But I think a lot of times people compartmentalize, which honestly, that's why it needs to be holistically. When Paul was talking about set your minds on things above, not on earthly things. Anything and everything that we do needs to be reflective of Christ, regardless of I'm hanging out with the boys or Sunday morning or whatever it may be. Holistically, it has to have that same approach. What my faith is needs to be pouring out in every sphere of my life rather than just compartmentalized.
Gotcha. Lisa, what are your thoughts?
Well, my thought, I was thinking that, do the one part of it, in other words, do you think people practice what they preach? I basically wrote no, but then I wrote, because then there's margin hoping for us to do better. That's kind of what I was thinking. And I'm sure there's more thoughts there, and mine are just scattered right this second, but they're coming back to me, I promise. So y'all just answer, and when mine get back in my head, I'm going to say them.
Kayla, what did you have an idea on this?
Let's see here. Why don't you give me 1 minute? And Y'all go ahead and jump on to the next one, and I'll hit you up on the third question.
She's doing the
no
technical.
problem. Let me tell you where I was going with this. I think a lot of times the answer is yes. You know, I think a really good follow-up question. I mean, not all the time. None of us are perfect, and we're never going to live in alignment with what we believe. I had a friend of mine who said, I already know more about the Bible than I'm ever willing to do. Okay. You know, part of it is we just have that old man still in us, and we want to do what we want to do. But I think there's a good follow-up question. Not only do I always do it, which I'm not going to probably be able to do that, but am I trending in the right direction? You know, and am I more Christ-like today than I was a year ago or than I was 5 years ago? I think it's one of those things. I don't know about your Christian life, but it's not a straight line. There's ups and downs, you know. Sometimes I have a really good day or a really good week, and you know, I think, man, I can do this all the time, and the next week I fall apart on something. So I think, you know, recognize that God knows who we are. Recognize that God's already forgiven us for our sins, but that we want to become more Christ-like. And that's the goal. That's where we want to be going. All right. Let's get over to question number 3. How can I if we're not going to do it like that, if we're not going to live in keeping with our spiritual beliefs, how can I get myself to act like I believe? What can I do that's practical that I can do that? Okay. So, Lisa, you want to kick us off?
Sure. I'm going to actually kick us back quite a few years. Do you guys remember there was a big movement? The book In His Steps had been republished and put out, and the WWJD was real big. It was on bracelets, and that's What Would Jesus Do?
Right.
I think one of the best ways to make sure that we are acting like we believe is to constantly be reminded that we're to act like Jesus. And I just remember during that, I was in high school whenever that happened, and that was like a big deal. I mean, people were wearing it on their bracelets. People were getting it like stickered on their watch, on their dashboards, on their rearview mirror. Because, you know, it'd be really hard to show some road rage and yell at somebody, you know, you idiot, when you're sitting there reading, well, what would Jesus do? Knowing that he would not call them an idiot. So I think sometimes when we keep who we want to be like in front of us, which would be Jesus, that helps us. Now, of course, I mean, we all still fall short of that. I'm by no means, even with WWJD, it could be tattooed across my eyelids and I'd still, you know, fall short of that. But that's a good way to help me remember that I want to act like I believe, and I believe that Jesus is the way, and I want to live like him.
I like that idea of having a focal point. How about Adam or Kayla, either one?
When I think of this, like, how can I get myself to act like I believe? And again, it comes back to being intentional. And I'm not saying I got this down pat, folks. I'm not saying that I have this perfect, but there's a couple of things that I have done in my daily routine to help me reflect, to help me think about, okay, how is this going to affect such and such? Number one, and I've mentioned this previous times before, if you watch LIfeTalk on a regular basis, but I have my my phone goes off every hour from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. And it just kind of reminds me to be in communion with God, but it also reminds me, like, hey, you're in the midst of this, or let's think about this decision or else. Driving. I love podcasts, I love music and so forth, but there's a lot of times where I just shut off everything and I just start thinking about 10 minutes ago, 5 minutes ago, what's next I got to be doing. And then in the evening time, I really do try, not every time, but in the evening time, I try to think about different aspects of what has happened during that day. What was good, what was bad, the things that were bad, why were they bad? And just that whole process of practically that allows me to act upon my faith and my relationship with Christ. I know that was a very long answer, Joe, to what you were expecting.
I want to go back and ask you a question about that. You intrigued me that when you said you had your phone that goes off every hour. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What's your purpose behind that? I mean, it doesn't have to be anything profound. I'm just curious. Why do you set that? What do you do when it goes off, or what do you try to do?
Two aspects. One, it just reminds me to be in just communion, constant communion in fellowship with God, because I know we all kind of do our quiet time, and I know we can pray, in the ride or at dinner. That's great. That's all fine. For me personally, though, I'm trying to have more of a conversation with God throughout my entire day. So every time that goes off every hour, that's just and it doesn't have to be this long conversation, but it's okay, I'm working on something, or I'm having a conversation with someone that goes off. It's a sword, and sometimes it scares me. Many of you guys have heard it before. It's just what was that? But it reminds me oh, okay, Lord, I'm in this situation. I'm talking to this person. I'm about to do this. I want to make the wise choice. I want to make the wise decision. How do I answer this person? How do I deal with this situation? And then second of all, again, sometimes not only through prayer, but it makes me reflect on okay, you're about to go into this meeting. You're about to have this. Be careful of what you say or how you think or how you act, because this can affect. And it's just a reminder. Now, do I always do great at it? No, but it's a reminder that I've been doing for almost 2 years now.
That is neat. I really like that. Lisa, you started to say something there, I thought.
I was going to say, can we back up just for 1 second, back to this question here? Only because where I told you there was that little bitty problem where I'm seeing it on 2 different feeds. I want to make sure I share a couple of our comments that came in.
Sure.
Tim Drought says, it's a battle of the spirit versus the flesh. That's not an excuse. It doesn't justify doing what we don't want to, but it lets us know it is a battle that always exists. Paul spoke so eloquently on it in Romans 7. I do that which I hate and don't do that which I want to. That was such a good point. And Andrea says stress, peer pressure, and sometimes just ignorance and not thinking through to the outcome.
I want to go back. That reminded me of something that Adam said earlier. And that's the idea of speaking with the idea that thinking about how the person may hear you, how they may respond to you. I saw this diagram one time of communications, and it started out with what I thought I said and the tone that I thought I said it in, okay? And then what the person actually heard and the tone that they heard, and then all them interpreting the body language and everything else, and as far as how they finally interpreted what you said. We've all done the game where you have the party line, you whisper something into someone's ear and it goes down through several people and it comes out totally different. I think a little bit of that happens every time we communicate. We think we have this very clear idea of what we said and how we said it. And lots of times it's just not like that. It's just not like that at all. So let me get back to our question here again. How can I get myself to act like I believe? I want to echo again what Adam said. I think there is a lot of it is living your life intentionally. I heard this concept expressed years ago, and it's always been important to me. I want to live in a proactive fashion. I don't want to be reactive. I want to be proactive. And proactive involves acting in anticipation of future problems or issues. So I think about what a problem might be, and I try to fix it before it ever becomes a problem. I can't always do that, but sometimes I can head off problems. Other times I can head off how big a problem may be. Maybe I can just help control it. Some people, they never proactively consider those options. They just react when something goes south. Maybe you've seen it. There's a diagram that people talk about. It has like 2 concentric circles, okay? A circle with inside of another circle. So the bigger circle is issues of concern, okay? Those are things I can't do anything about. World hunger, whether I'm going to get cancer. Maybe there's a little something I can do there. But all these things, those are things that are in the bigger circle, and that's the issue. But there's a smaller circle inside that are issues that I'm concerned about, but that I can control. I can do some things about. You know, I can choose to exercise. I can choose to eat more healthy. I can choose to have regular times with God in the Word, right? I can choose to have Christian friends that are going to be impacting me for Christ. There's all these other things. And here's what I have found out, and it's not my original thought by any stretch. The more I act in a proactive fashion, the larger that inside circle becomes. So there's more things I can control, and there's fewer things that I have to react to if I'm very proactive in my thought process. All right. So the bottom line is, I want to be proactive. I think there's several good examples of proactive people in the Bible. You know, if you have your Bible, I'm going to be reading from Philippians chapter 3 and verse 14. This was Paul speaking to the Philippians, and he just had a very simple statement. I press toward the goal for the prize of the upward call of God in Christ. Okay? I press toward the goal for the prize of the upward call. Everything that Paul did, he was thinking eternally. He was thinking with long-term goals. You know, even in his death, where he wanted to go to Rome and he wanted to be able to witness to other people, everything that he did, as Adam would say, he did it with intentionality, with purpose. He was proactive, you know, on all of he planned his mission trips. Everything that he did in a proactive fashion. And I'm impressed by that. Christ, look what he did. Before we were ever born, he had already made arrangements for our salvation. And that just blows my circuit breakers. Before he created man at all, before God created man, they had already figured out how they were going to deal with sin. You know, Christ did it. He did it in a quote. Look at Matthew chapter 16, verse 18. And it says, and I also say to you that you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades shall not prevail against it. So before he ever went to the cross, he already planned for the church. And I think those kind of thoughts, those kind of proactive thoughts can make a big difference. So anyway, that's kind of what I was thinking about. How about Kayla? How'd you think, Kayla?
Sorry about that.
I was gonna say.
Okay.
There was a kids running, so I was like, you know what, I better just mute myself for a while. What I was saying is mine's not nearly as good as that answer. That was great. For me, I'm gonna throw it back to a phrase that we used when we talked about our temptation series. So this was like a while ago. But when we did our temptation series, one of the phrases that we used was to train your brain. Remember that one? Yeah. That's what kind of instantly came to my mind when I read this question was, for me, I have to train my brain to, stay in God's word daily, to stay in prayer, just like Adam talked about, every hour on the air, just to be in this constant conversation with God, because it just makes it so much easier to act in the way you believe when you have that constant communication. If I don't have that, I can tell on a day I don't have that good communication with God, because that's whenever I know I'm acting out towards things that I normally wouldn't. I'm reacting instead of being proactive about things. So yeah, for me, it was just remembering to train my brain that, be in that constant communication, stay in God's word. That's how I can get myself to act like I believe.
I like that. Train your brain.
And yeah, let me add something on there too, because in this passage, verse 9, chapter 3 of Colossians says, do not lie to one another, since you have put off the old self with its practices and have put on the new self. Okay, well, part of the old self is, let's just be honest. I'm not going to be intentional about my thinking. I really don't care about your feelings, right? I mean, that is kind of part of the old self. And okay, so just be a little transparent here. There's been a situation that I've been thinking about for the past week, and I talked to a particular individual, and typically I guess I wouldn't have. That sounds really bad, y'all. I do care what this individual thinks, okay? But on this particular situation, it's been different in previous years. And for the last couple of days, I've been meditating on this. I've been praying about this. And I came to this individual today and I was just like, hey, I really, really want to honor and respect your decision and your thinking and so forth. So I was being proactive. I was, you know what I'm saying? I was being proactive, and because my old self would have been like, I care for you and everything else, but I want to do whatever I want to do anyways, right? Let's just be honest. And so it's that intentionality that I'm trying to change that mindset. And folks, you guys who are listening in, watching this, whatever else, when I say intentionality, and we're talking about having the mind of Christ, the peace of Christ, and what Paul was talking about, putting on the new, taking off the old, and so forth. That's not a flip of a switch. Okay,
that's a good point.
It's really not. Like, folks, I'm not gonna tell you how long I've been walking with the Lord, but I still have a ways to go. Okay, and I'm just now realizing certain aspects that this was just brought to my attention like 5 minutes ago. So, yeah, there you have it. Thanks, Paul.
Well, the good news is this is a continuing journey. I mean, if we were supposed to master it, Jesus would have said, master what you preach rather than practice what you preach, because we aren't going to master it yet. So it is a journey, and we're all on this journey together.
I saw this video the other day of this singer, and he was, kind of stepping out of his song for a second. He says, when you look at me, he says, I may not be the person you would like me to be. And he said, that's okay. And I love this metaphor he used. He said, but I'm still in the oven. More importantly, God's still in the kitchen. And someday he's going to open the oven door and he's going to say, well done. And I just thought, that's a great metaphor. God's still in the kitchen. Yeah, I'm still a work in progress, not near where I want to be. But thank God I'm not where I used to be.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. That was a good analogy. Thanks so much. All right, number 4. Let's finish. We're finishing up here. What practical differences would a new mindset make in relationships? If I had this mindset that I hope that I have, what difference would it make?
Let me just say this, and then I'll be quiet for the rest of the time.
No, you're doing fine.
Let me just say this. Speaking of what I just spoke about, bringing up that situation to that individual, I think when I brought that up to that individual, I think the individual's face was kind of like, huh, like he's actually asking what I think about this and considering and so forth. It's just like, what happened to you in the last couple of days? You know what I'm saying? Like, what's happened to you over the period of time? And so here's my point. I take that back. I know when a person has the spirit of the living God inside of them, you don't really have to go around telling people, hey, I got Jesus, look at me, I got Jesus, right? That's good, that's great and all. But I'm telling you, people will recognize your thought process, the way that you love, the way that you care, the way that your work ethic, the way your character, just the way overall of your life. People will know that there is a change. And so when there's that change, automatically there's this shift of this mindset, because you have chosen to go for the things of Christ and what he offers, and do away with these dirty old nasty laundry clothes. And you guys know this, like, if you're sweaty and nasty, funky, and you put it in the hamper, right? Unless college students are watching this right now, maybe y'all did some of what I did, Febreze and throw back on, but I'm not suggesting that. But typically, you don't go through your hamper and be like, ooh, yay, let me put this back on. Like, no, because it's funky, nasty, rotten. Like, that's the same thing what Paul was saying here. Like, all of these things, your mindset, it was of the world and this philosophy. But now that you have put on Christ, it's a whole different, it's a game changer.
It's interesting. I think maybe several of us have done this. You've met somebody, you've talked to them for a few minutes. You haven't talked anything about it of a spiritual nature or religion, but you really believe that they're a believer. You know, you just had that connection. It's an interesting question for me. What practical differences would a new mindset make in relationships? I think one thing it would make a difference for me is I might appreciate my friends more. You know, I might have a deeper relationship with them. Maybe some of the people that are acquaintances, maybe I would see more of a desire to become friends with them. You know, I think it could do a lot. I think it would also help a lot as far as having fewer conflicts. You know, if I've got the right mindset, I'm going to have less trouble with people. You know, a good friend of mine, she has this saying that she says, we find what we look for. You know, pretty simple thing, but we do. You know, if you come to a church and you want to find problems, you'll find problems in any church. If you look in a relationship, no matter how good that relationship is, if you want to find problems, you can find them. But you know what? If you want to find the neat things that are happening in a church or the neat things between you and someone else, if you look for those, you can find them. So I think one of the things that would do would be, you know, deepen those relationships, maybe fewer conflicts, and lastly, maybe the relationships would be more godly in nature. You know? So all of those, I think, could be helped if I get my mind correct.
I think for me, I would, you know, in relationships, you can always, you know, whether it's friendships or, you know, with your spouse or whoever it is, I'm always like looking, not necessarily looking for the bad in someone, but I just, you just sometimes like expect the worst. Like, you know, you take offense to everything and everything's like a personal attack, basically. I feel like if I was truly acting, you know, with this new mindset, that I wouldn't take things so personally. I wouldn't, you know, always expect the worst. You know, it would just, you'd expect the best out of everyone and you would find the good no matter what the situation, no matter what's happening. Because
Wouldn't
truly,
that be neat?
Yeah, that would be neat. I'd love to just be able to always just see the good in every situation, no matter what it is.
I go ahead, Lisa. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm sorry. I was just gonna say mine kind of follows Kayla. We've been talking about this for a few years in our little children's ministry circle with my leaders and stuff. Once we start viewing every child and every adult as someone that's made in the image of God, it changes our relationship with them because it makes us see that God saw them as special. And that could be your enemy at school. You know, when we're working with the children, we talk a lot about that because they have little bullies and we're just constantly reminding them to also see them as they are someone who is made in the image of God. And I think once our mindset is changed from that, it does get a little bit easier. Still far from, you know, in my life, I still, you know, have to remind myself constantly. But once we remember that, you know, they were made in the image of God too, it makes it easier for us to love them, to try and see their point, their side of things.
Yep.
Good deal. Good deal. All right. Well, we're getting close on time. Adam, would you mind getting us to the bottom line and closing us out this evening?
Yeah, I like how Lisa was saying that if you just kind of get in the mindset that each child and each parent and each individual is made in the image of God. And so if I could just say it this way, it's how you position yourself, especially if you're a follower of Christ. So that's why we're saying let your position and your practice match. You're saying that you're a follower of Christ, and I understand that we're all works in progress. I totally get that. But it's got to be aligned together. So what you're doing, let's just say typical worship on Sunday, should also pour into Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday and Friday and Saturday in all aspects of our life. That's why we're saying let your position and your practice match. And here's a couple of ways that we're just encouraging you guys to do this, which we call the next steps. You know, first and foremost, again, I know this is hard sometimes, especially the culture. I know America culture is. It's just you want to move at the speed of light. Take just a moment, whether it's in the car, whether you're walking, whatever else, to think about what your starting point of change is. What does that entail? What does that look like? Okay. And then once you start to formulate that in your mind, then you want to let a trusted person know and begin to like, here's my action plan for this. And it could be, you know, yes, I want to talk to someone about Jesus, or you may not know where your starting point is of change. And I want to know a little bit more exploring on this topic. That's why we say, if you need help, look, reach out to us. You can email me at astotler@calvarywv.com, and I would be glad to have that conversation with you. So, yes. Joe, did you have anything else?
No, I think we're in pretty good shape. I want to thank everybody for joining us this evening, all the ones who said they were there and all the comments. Appreciated that very much. So maybe with that, I'll just wish everybody a great evening and just looking forward to seeing everybody on Sunday. Good night, guys.
Night. See you on Sunday.